I want to read a couple of things. I've got the AARP version of the big book here, so I can leave the glasses in my pocket. And I'm going to read from a couple of pages, and I'm going to go too fast for you to keep up. Page 16. Bill says, there is, however, a vast amount of fun about it all. Page 132, forgive me for showing off, in the dead center of the page, that would be 17 lines from the top and bottom and 2 words in from both margins. It says, we absolutely insist on enjoying life. Further down, it says, so we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. Page 133 says, we are sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. And page 151 at the bottom, now and then a serious drinker, being a dry at the moment, says, I don't miss it all. Feel better, work better, having a better time. I think I'll join the gym. I ad-libbed that part about the gym. That might not be in your book. I actually borrowed that in one of Bob's talks. He and I had the privilege of doing a number of workshops. He always ad-libbed that. It says, as ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. When our friend is like a boy, whistling in the dark, keep up his spirits, he fools himself. Inward, he would give anything to take a half a dozen drinks and get away with it. Boy, that's a fact. I got no interest in being a social drinker. I don't want to have a drink with the boys on the way home from work, or a beer while I mow the grass or watch the ball game. And I don't think a glass of wine make this steak taste any better. A half a dozen, the way I pour, no consequences, we can talk. So that's the great truth. But here is, for the newcomer, maybe the most important sentence in this book. He will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. Wait a minute. Does that mean I'm going to have to find a way to be sober and happy at the same time? That is exactly what that means. That is exactly what that means. And I thought, when they told me I couldn't drink Miller Bear or Chivas on the rocks or take some of those alcohol substitutes that I was taking, I thought the party was over. I thought I was never going to have any more fun. Boy, was I ever wrong about. We don't have time today to talk about all the things I was wrong about, but that was a big one. And but it was necessary for me when I came out of the haze. I'm sober since June of '84. When I came out of the haze, I didn't know much about myself because I'd been holding up the masks for so long. I didn't really know who I was. And it's been about experimenting to find out, because I've been acting so long. I don't know who stands behind the last mask. And so I had to experiment. And it's been important for me to know that anything we're doing poorly as I learned to do it. So it's okay to not know. If you're not sure about really who you are, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But he said, don't worry about getting in touch with your feelings. You stay sober, they'll get in touch with you. And that's been my experience. But it was necessary for me again to discover who I am and what is it that I like. Sometimes I find out something I believe when I hear myself say something that I disagree with, which is kind of an interesting situation. Maybe somebody I had that experience. And but I got a wild hair a few years ago. I wanted to do pottery. I want to sit at the wheel and feel the clay. And that was all over me for a while. And I ran into a lady in recovery who's got a pottery shop. And I spent a day at her wheel. And I don't ever want to do that again. Oh, yuck. But I went and found out. And I didn't have to buy a kiln and a wheel and 2,000 pounds of clay to find out. And so it's okay to not know. And it's okay to try something that doesn't work. See, I didn't know that. If I couldn't do it great from the gate, I didn't want to do it at all. And so I'm going to talk today about the source of abundant joy, which for me has been this relationship with this loving, laughing God. And I'm going to talk about that quite a bit, I think. I don't know. I want to thank you all for the topic. You guys picked the topic, or you gave me 2 or 3 to select from. And this is one I picked, and I just love it. I don't usually study for a talk. I just sit and blow it out. I got a page of notes today of things that I do not want to keep from getting in here because I got so excited. I woke up 2 mornings ago with just lightning shooting out of both ears, and I sat down and had to start making notes. I just couldn't stand it. And I want to talk about some of the blocks to joy. And what are they? Well, fear is one of them. My fears are always in the future. The problem with the future is God isn't in the future. There's one who has all power, that one is God, but you find him now. Now isn't when I find God, it's where. My God is the God of right now, right here. And when I leave right here, right now, I go to a place where he isn't. And I got no business there. My time travel machine is a 1-seater. And I don't need to go anywhere where he isn't, because I'm in bad company when I do. So that's what fear is actually the concern. I may not get my will at some time in the future. but it's actually borrowing pain from the future. Um, Anger is another block to joy. And I have discovered the source of all anger. I know where it all comes from. It comes from being right. I've never been angry when I wasn't also certain I was right. And being right comes from having passed judgment. So judgment is the genesis of anger. That's where it comes from. And I realized that several years ago, and I added to my morning prayer. And this morning, I asked God to please bless me that I don't judge anyone. Because if I don't judge them, I don't ever get angry. And I asked him to please bless me that I might love them all as he does. To empty me of self and fill me with his love, shaken together, pressed down, heaped up, overflowing. It might gush out of me all over everyone that I meet. If I find myself in anger, it says in the book on page maybe 87, pause when agitated, which is very easy to do, except of course when I'm agitated. But that's when it's really the most important that I do that. And the difference between a response and a reaction is a pause. And the longer the pause, the less chance I'm going to make amends. That's what the pause does, is it gets me out of the amends business. What I've discovered is that anger and love don't ever travel together, ever. Sadness and love do. If I find myself angry, I got to stop and pray and say, God, I have judged somebody or something. Please help me get out of this judgment. And let me be sad about what's going on here instead of angry, because sadness and love can travel together. And I respond from sadness. I can respond in love. And when I respond in love, I don't find myself making amends. So the source of all my anger is judgment. And I added that to my morning prayer coming up on 7 years ago. And it has changed my life. I still have a problem with it occasionally. I can report tremendous progress. My experience has been when I ask God for what he wants me to have, I get a lot of help. The trick is for me to get to the right request. And for me, that appears to be one. I'm going to talk about some others here in a little while. I was diagnosed with cancer in my throat in May of last year. And the first thing they did was take my teeth, because they're going to radiate me and kill my jawbone. And you can't have teeth in a dead jawbone, apparently. And what I realized very quickly was my assignment. My assignment was to cheer up the people that came to cheer me up, because I don't need to be cheered up. So what I did is I put a clown nose on my mask. I wear this one or one like it. I've got several that are outfitted this way. And this is the one I wear. And and I also carry them with me all the time. I got extras. And if somebody says something nice about my clown nose, they get one. I've been carrying clown noses for a long time. And the reason is when the interstate comes to a stop, instead of sitting there and fuming, what I do is I pop open the glove compartment. I put on a clown nose. I reach into my other pocket and I pull out a little jar of bubbles. And I start blowing bubbles out the window to get the attention of the other driver. And when they see me in the clown nose, they start laughing, and I start laughing, because laughter is contagious. And I'm stuck in traffic anyway. You might as well try to make it fun. If we stay stopped very long, I put it in park and get out and start passing out clown noses. I buy them 100, 150 at a time. That's been just great fun. So I put the clown nose on my mask, and I pass them out. I passed out some stuff today. It's just part of what I do, because I ask God each morning to bless me that I don't miss any opportunities to be of service or to spread love and joy. What I've discovered is I'm sloshing love and joy all over you. It splatters onto me every time. There's no way to block it. No way to block it. And it's most especially important for me to do that when I don't feel like it. I had the privilege of doing a number of things in the Soviet Union. And I've got a friend over there. I'm his maybe great grand sponsor. And I gave him that assignment to start slush and joy everybody. I talked to him a couple of weeks later. I said, "You've been doing it?" He said, "No, I haven't felt like it." I said, No, you don't get it. That's when you have to do it. I didn't ask you to feel like doing it. I asked you to do it. Because when you do it to them, it's going to splatter onto you. It's been a fabulous thing. So any of these people that came to cheer me up, it wasn't necessary, because I don't need to be cheered up. I'm sitting in God's lap. I've been there a long time. It's a beautiful place. And I've become convinced to the depths of my soul that God's will is not a good deal. It's the best deal there is. It is the absolute, even the pieces that I don't like. Left to my own devices, I want the rest of my life. I'm going to take the rest of my life off with pay. And that's not the package. And I'm going to talk about that about here in a couple of minutes. But I was going to talk about death, as you may have noticed, has kind of a bad reputation. And yet, if you'll think about it, death was invented by the same God who invented smallmouth bass, watermelon, and sex. Good job, right? Same guy. I've seen his work. I think it's a great adventure. And I was having a pretty severe physical problem a number of years ago, and I thought I might be dying. And it occurred to me, I'd offered God my will in my life, never had offered him my death. So I did. I said, Father, I'm not asking to go, but if it's time and it's your will, take me. My fear of death pretty much been gone since then. I'll tell you what, when that one leaves, it takes a bunch of the other ones with it. And I think we're talking a little bit about fears and being in the future. I've got 3 vocabularies: speaking vocabulary, praying vocabulary, and thinking vocabulary. I've got to use the word today frequently in all 3 of those so that I can stay here, so I can get between the claps, to be right here, right now. Right this second, I can see a bunch of you right now. Is everybody okay right this second? Everybody, okay, good. How about now? Yeah, to be just right here, right now. It's where all the magic is. That's where God is. It's where you magnificent people are. It's a fabulous way to be. The other piece of this sloshing love and joy all over people is to do it anonymously. And if you ever prayed the 3rd step prayer and mean it, you better hang on. These lessons will fall out of the sky on you in the most unusual times. It was about December 23rd. It's almost time to start Christmas shopping. So I was getting out a day early. And I was sitting there, and there was this white stuff was coming out of the sky, and the traffic was backed up, and I watched the traffic light change 3 times before I was able to turn into the mall. And I drive down, and I get a beam the store I want to go in. And I turn down the parking lane just as somebody backs out of the space right next to the handicap space. And I get this gift. And the gift is, I realize that's not my space. I'm going to drive past that fabulous space on this nasty night and park at the other end, because I'm young, my legs are in good shape. And I'm going to give that space as a free and clear gift to someone I will probably never meet, to lift their spirit. And when I lift someone else's spirit, it lifts mine. You can't give without receiving. It's spiritual law. You cannot receive without giving, and you can't give without receiving. It cannot be done. And that was where I began to learn that. I had another experience one Christmas day. My family ran out of milk. So at halftime of the ball game, I raced out of the car, roared down the convenience store, ran back, grabbed the milk, ran up front. I was first guy up. And all of a sudden, my heart saw a human being. There's a human with hopes and dreams like mine, standing behind a counter in a convenience store on Christmas Day, working in that day probably for minimum wage, time and a half, pretty good guess. And my heart opened and said out loud to him, wow, thank you for coming to work on Christmas Day. Man, I bet there's someplace you'd rather be. But you see, my family ran out of milk. And if you hadn't come to work today, we couldn't have bought it. I'd like to thank you for working on Christmas Day. And he and I both cried. And I don't know if it touched anybody else. And that was one of the things I learned, is that I need to be complimenting people as much as I can. I was talking to, I'm sponsoring this young fella at my age, everybody's young. There's a guy. And I was telling him, I think the 3 most important phrases that a sponsor can say are, 1, I love you, because I'm told that God is love. When I give love, I give God his highest gift. 2 is, I am proud of you. I'm on a constant search for ways to tell a guy I sponsored that I'm proud of him. I have to be honest, but I'm proud of you. My favorite one is when my new sponsee, a rookie, tells me he lied to me. He says, I told you I went to 7 meetings last week, and I only went to 6. And I say, wow, I celebrate your recovery. Look how far you have come. You used to lie for credit when you could have got cash for the truth. You're a compulsive liar. And you have come so far in your recovery. That little bitty lie about 1 meeting is festering your soul. Look how much you have grown. It's such an opportunity to cheer from constant search, constant search. He's an alcoholic. I knew he was going to lie to me the day before I met him. That's what they do. That's what they do. And his lie doesn't hurt me, but it's an opportunity to cheer for him. I think it's such an important piece. I had another experience. A number of years ago, I was between wives and I had a lot of time on my hands. And I was in the state park fishing. There was a family having a picnic. There's a little boy. Looks like he and I are going to fish together today. Apparently, I'm going to cast and he's going to do everything else. And we caught several. And I chatted with the family, and the kid was a fisherman. He had it bad. 7 years old. I could relate. At 7 years old, I was a fisherman too. I was born with it. And I got to know the family. I took him on several short trips. And when I was sure that he could do it, he might put a canoe in the Buffalo River, which I like to say, it's about an hour west of Nashville, Tennessee. And I like to say, I hope there's a place in heaven almost as beautiful as the Buffalo River. My heart lives out there. And this little boy was 8 years old when we put a canoe in that river. We floated 5 miles of river in 8 hours and caught over 100 fish. It was one of the magic days. Everything we did worked. Everything. Kid caught a 4-pound smallmouth bass. He got my fish, is what I'm all right, but I'm really okay with it. Really am. But about a mile before the takeout ramp, all of a sudden the sky blackens and I hear the thunder, and we're going to get it. There's nothing we can do. And I slide over to the side up under some trees to get a little bit of cover, and I'm about to give God a piece of mind. But did you happen to notice St. Scott down here? I'm not even kin to that kid. He caught my fish. I'm about to do this prayer, you see. And this beautiful little guy looks over his shoulder at me and he says, "Is it okay to fish here?" Boy, you don't ever know when one of those lessons is going to fall out of the sky on you. Because what I learned was when the skies in my life blacken and I hear the thunder, and all I can do is hunker down and take it. I think that's a prayer I'm supposed to take to my Father. Is it okay to fish here? Because you see, that's my assignment. Understand that. Understand that. That's why I'm here. I want to talk a little bit, another perspective on joy. I'm going to ask for a show of hands here in a second. I can only see about 10 of you. A lot of screens are off. Who has had the experience of somebody asks you a question, the moment before they ask you, you did not know the answer, and you open your mouth and not BS, but a piece of the great golden truth that you didn't know falls out. 3 hours later, you can't quote it. Sometimes you can't remember what it was. Who's had that experience? Put them up. Yes, sir. I see some hands. I knew it. I knew it. Yeah, those postcards from God. Dear Scott, you must have done something right, or we couldn't have pulled that off. I got your back. Love, God. I'm going to share one of those with you. Just happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I'm working with this new guy, and he completed he's in step 4. And one of the things I tell people when they start step 4 is, you have my permission to do a lousy 4-step, do a poor 4-step. Because if you have to do it perfectly, you can't do it at all. So get your own permission to do it. And I say, well, not saving a special alcove in Akron at the AA Hall of Fame for your 4-step. And my home group does not give a trophy every year for the best 4-step. And this is a trophy you are not going to get. I think it turned it around. It says 4-step trophy never awarded. All right. This is a trophy you ain't going to get. And it's all about permission to not do it perfectly. Anyway, he completed the prayer portion of the resentment inventory. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please find out. And I said, well, congratulations, we'll move on. He said, no. He says, I'm afraid some of these resentments might come back, or I might get some other resentments. And I heard myself say, stop solving problems you don't have. And he and I both said, wow. I said, I'm going to write that down. He said, I already did. That ought to be on the wall next to Easy Does It. Quit solving problems you don't have. I spend way too much time in my head trying to clear away the wreckage of my future. That's no way to live. That's just no way to live. I share another. This is the first one I can remember that happened to me that I actually remembered later what I said. I had about 4 years, and after a meeting, this lady said to me, there's, I think this is going to come back here in just a second. Hold on. Growing old ain't for sissies, I can tell you that. She said, there's expectations and there's hope, and they're both about the future. What's the difference? And I heard myself say, expectations are specific. They come from my head where my disease continues to reside. And they're really premeditated resentments because I'm going to be angry if I don't get them. Hope is general. It comes from my heart. It's based on the simple truth that a loving God holds my future. And she and I both said, wow. And I did not know that when I opened my mouth and that fell out. I know a bunch of you have had this experience. It is a fabulous experience. I'm talking about joy. If you're new and you don't have a sponsor, I know you're a really good person and you want to do somebody a massive favor, a huge favor, allow someone to sponsor you. Give them the gift of being your sponsor. There is nothing like it to be a tool in the master's hand. I don't turn the light on in this guy's eyes, but I was standing by the switch. I helped him find it. That's what this is about, this phenomenal gift. And I'll tell you another fabulous joy too, is taking a meeting into a gated community. That's a jail, you know. I was sober about 6 months and my sponsor said to me one day, "You're finished in public information forever. You are a promoter and we don't do that. You'll now take a meeting into the jail." I said, "Jerry, I've never even been arrested." He said, "I have a news flash for you, Sparky. The boys in jail already know how to get arrested. They're not going to need your help with that." Rarely have we seen a person in jail who has thoroughly followed our path. So I called down to the jail and started taking a meeting into the jail, and it changed my life. And I had an experience a few years ago. I had a jail commitment that night, and I just found out my team's playing the arch rival on TV that night. And I'm stomping around the house. Doesn't anybody else ever step up? And I always rah. And of course I went to the jail. And that's the night I come out of the jail, a foot off the ground with tears running down my face. Because I realized this loving, laughing God has taken a sick guy like me and taken this magnificent program that I've been given into that facility. And somebody in there, one of our people in there, is not going to have to come back and wear that orange jumpsuit again because I missed that ball game. I can't tell you today who won. I don't know. And it doesn't matter. I had an experience several years ago sitting in a little restaurant minding my own, and this man walked up to my table. He says, "You don't remember me, do you?" I look at this guy. I said, "No, if I should, I'd like to apologize. I don't know you." And he said, "Well, you came into a prison I was in a few years ago, and you spoke, and I heard you, and I believed you. And I'm never going to be incarcerated again for the rest of my life. And I'd like to thank you for my freedom. I have never smoked it, drank it, or slept with it that comes anywhere near what that does for me." I am not a skyrocket to success around here. And people have to point things out to me. Unfortunately, the big book is written in English, which I claim to be my native tongue. Page 77. And I misread this line for about the first 30 years I was sober. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be a maximum service to God and the people about us. I thought it's my job to be a maximum service. Well, it's not. And that's not what it says. I got no idea what being a maximum service would look like. I don't have a guess. But to fit myself to be a maximum service, I know how to do that. Daily prayer and meditation. Taking meetings into jails and treatment centers. Saying please and thank you. Sponsoring, being sponsored, going to meetings. Letting people in traffic. I know how to do that. It isn't my assignment to do God's job. My assignment is to be the best tool to fit myself to be a maximum service. The master craftsman reaches for the best tool, laying the closest to his hand. My job is to be the best tool I can be and to reside as close to his hand as I can. And then he picks me up and uses me as he will. That changed me. And there's another one on page 85. They just rewrote this. One of my guys I sponsor says he must have a 5th edition because he read the 4th and now there's new stuff in it. I think all real spiritual literature is alive. It changes. And it seems like it changes because I read it with new eyes. This is page 85. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. A reprieve, by the way, is a stay of execution. It reminds me of a disease so powerful it kills people that don't even have it. And my reprieve is not contingent on my spiritual condition. I don't know what my spiritual condition is. Sometimes people say, "How are you?" So I don't know. I haven't asked my sponsor yet today. That's one of my answers. And that's the truth. I don't know. And spiritual growth is not something I do. It's something I receive. And I'm not qualified to judge it. And I need to step out of the business of doing so. But it says it's contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. Well, I can do that. Maintenance means two things. To me, it means to maintain in the sense of don't lose anything I've already got. It also means to maintenance in the same sense that I maintenance my vehicle. I rotate the tires. I got the right pressure in them. I change the oil on time. The little squirter thing for windshield, I got fluid in it. I vacuum it out. I maintenance my spiritual condition. Same answer as the one on page 77. Daily prayer and meditation, reading spiritual literature, taking meetings into jails and treatment centers, sponsoring, being sponsored. Same answer. That I maintenance my spiritual condition. And that changes everything for me. And I don't need to worry about what my spiritual condition is. It's none of my business. But I need to be interested, am I maintaining my spiritual condition? That changed that one for me. Changing, I know I'm ricocheting around. I'm just so excited to be talking about all of this. This is just such a joy. Thank you guys again. My son, when he was preteen, had a Frisbee, it's a little opaque plastic throw toy. And it was just this ugly gray, but you could hold it up to a light and it would absorb light. And you'd take it away and it would glow. And you could show it, and it would begin to lose. It would begin to lose its light, but you could hold it back up and it'd gain it again. That's my heart being held up to God, absorbing love. And the metaphor fits perfectly. The closer I can stay, the longer I can stay, the more I can absorb. But as soon as I step away and I start spreading it, I need to get back to the source. I need to get back to the source so that I continue to do that. Because I ask him every day to bless me that I don't miss any chances to spread love and joy or be of service, which is really the same request made three ways. It's the exact same thing. Part of what I do every day is I send love to the places I'm going to be today. I sent love to every one of you this morning, every one of you. And it is such a joy to do that. I send it to the places I'm going to be, so there'll be some love there when I get there. And I pass out clown noses and bubbles, and it is just the most fun. I had a problem when I got here. Many people in my part of the country grew up in a religion with a God that you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley. God's will. And I had to take the term God's will, break it into two pieces. Here's the first one. What am I going to be when I grow up? Where am I going to live? How much money am I going to make? Do the communists eventually take over the world? The hippies in Africa never heard of Jesus. Can they go to heaven? And so on. All of that violates one day at a time. And now consider the entire category God's plan. The first step says, I'm not in management, don't need to know what the plan is, leaves me with God's will, which is very simply what would he have me do today. I had an experience with the last year or two. I was sitting by a stream and I was just sitting. And I looked across the stream and I saw a thundercloud. And it occurred to me, every drop of rain in the thundercloud is following God's will perfectly. And I saw a bird in a tree across the stream. And I thought, so is that bird. I looked down into the stream and there are minnows down there. And I thought, well, those fish are too. All of those are following God's will perfectly. Why can't I? And I got my answer. And the answer is, I am. It is not my job to be perfect. I'm convinced of it to the core of my being. I have my own definition of progress. Progress is making the same old mistake a little less often, or making a new and finer quality mistake, right? Anything beyond that's perfection, and that's not my assignment. Well, if it's not my job to be perfect, what's my job? My job's to make mistakes, and I'm good at it. Oh, they sent the right guy. And they've been telling me all my life, we learn from our mistakes. Well, if that's true, no one I'm looking at's been arrested more than once. Good luck on that. Right. Guys like me, we do not learn from our mistakes. We learn from living with the results of our mistakes. An enabler, or what I call an untreated alanonic, is someone who takes away the results, thereby blocking the learning process. So here's the learning process as I understand it today. Item 1, make a mistake. Item 2, be notified I made a mistake. I don't always know. Item 3, own mistake. Yeah, that was me. And if they only know 80%, I got to tell them the other 20. That's how I own it. Item 4, consult a spiritual advisor about how to item 5, make the amend. Usually, not always. Usually there's an amend involved. 6 is embrace the lesson. A mistake is just an invitation to a lesson. The evidence is if I'd already learned the lesson, I would not have made the mistake. A mistake is just a lesson dressed in its work clothes. That's all it is. And I don't have the power to make a mistake so ugly that he can't turn it into something magnificent, not fixed. That's who I am. That's who he is. It's really that simple. And I can't learn all of my lessons without making mistakes. I believe it. And I believe it's my assignment to make. So item 6 is to embrace the lesson. Item 7 is to share the lesson. Item 8 is when I share the lesson, I have to tell you I made a mistake. If I just share the lesson, I'm preaching and nobody wants to hear it. When I tell you I made the mistake, you can hear me. If I stand as a sinner beside a sinner, he can hear me. And item 9, make the next mistake. That's my assignment. That's why I'm here. I have my own permission to make mistakes. That is a tremendous freedom. It is an absolute joyous freedom, but it's only half of the freedom. The other half is you have my permission to make mistakes. If I got a rope on you, holding you in line, and you jump out, you pull me with you. It's when it becomes okay with me that you make mistakes is the other half of the freedom. The icing on that is when you make a mistake that appears to hurt me. The fact is I'm sitting in God's lap and you cannot hurt me. I'm immune. You do not have the power to hurt me. You can't do it. And so I know what God's will is. I have no idea what his plan is. I know what his will is to invite him into my life each morning, first thing, as God. I did that this morning. Some form of the 3rd or 7th step prayer for me. To talk about my day with him, to go through the day treating you guys like brothers and sisters, to be polite. I think it's really important to spread love and joy today, to stay in today, to stay as close to him as I can today, to check in and out, ever know. And I had the privilege of doing his eulogy a number of years ago. But I asked him one time, I said, how can you be this way? How are you this way? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, what's the first thing you did this morning? He said, well, the first thing I did this morning was I thanked God for a flush toilet. I said, what's the second thing? Well, I thanked him for toothpaste and toothbrush. I said, then what? Well, I thanked him for hot water and shaving cream and a sharp razor. Then I thanked him for a nice shower and shampoo and soap. Then I thanked him for a fluffy towel. Burke went through the day giving thanks. And it had become such a part of him, he did not know he was doing it. I don't even think I can lust after being at that level. I have known that for over a decade, maybe close to 2 decades. And I can't do it. I can't get it all the way to the front door before I'm back into trying to do it in my will. But I know that it's my job to check back in with this loving, laughing God of my very limited understanding. And I had to get out of the business of trying to understand God. It's not the assignment. The book says I can't. It's not the assignment. The assignment is to simply walk humbly in his presence today, treating you guys like brothers and sisters, and spreading love and joy, owning my mistakes, and living happy, joyous, and free. That's the assignment. I moved out of the home my first wife and I were living in when I was sober about 6 years. I'm going to tell 2 stories. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't believe in divorce. I also knew that if I stayed with her, I was going to hit her. And I'm not going to develop that whole thing, but it was imminent. And I asked old timers, I said, what should I do? And they said, turn it over. I said, how? They couldn't tell me. I went to the source. You believe what you like. I believe what I'm going to tell you. And I got the answer. The first thing I got was, what is it I turn over? And the answer is the result. I turn over how it turns out. How do I do that? 2 pieces. One is I stand today where God is. I got to quit trying to fix the rest of my life. I'm no good at it. And second, I operate within his principles. I had to get out of the motive business. Page 60 in the big book tells me I absolutely cannot trust my motives. Cliff said the 12 traditions are a set of principles designed to protect AA from my very best motives. That's what our principles do, is they protect us from our motives. Good to have good motive, but motive is not the magic. The magic is in the principle. So anyway, I do those 2 things. And I was given a gift, and the gift was 3 prayers I share in case somebody needs them. Prayer number 1, God, if it's your will for us to be together, put us together. Prayer number 2, if it's your will for us to be apart, put us apart. Those are easy ones. Here's the one that counts. God, if it's your will for me not to know today, Believe me, not knowing. When I can pray that one and mean it, I'm going to have my sponsor's definition of serenity. Serenity is not freedom from the storm. Serenity is peace in the middle of the storm. And the only way to have that is to give up my need to manage the storm. And the only way to do that is to know the manager of all storms. And isn't that what this thing is that we do is all about? Is that not what this thing is about? And the other thing that happened is I used to carry, it's now on my mirror in my bathroom, but I used to carry a picture of myself taken when I was about 4 years old. And that's it right there. And I had it when I was living alone in that little apartment. I had that picture of that beautiful little boy blown up 2 feet wide, 3 feet tall. And I put it up at the foot of my bed, and I didn't know why. And I'd look, as last thing I saw at night, first thing I saw in the morning. I don't know how long that went on. And one time I was looking at that, and I thought, I wonder who he would have become. Some things happened to that little boy that should never happen to any child. And I've been through the forgiveness process and the 4-step, and it's not troubling me anymore. But some things happened to that little boy that should not happen to any child. And I'll tell you this, I did some things that no one should ever do also. But I thought, who would that beautiful little boy have become if he'd received all the nurturing and all the guidance and all the love he deserved as a child of God? Who would he have become? And I got my answer. The answer is that it's my assignment. That's what I'm here to do. And I serve a God who's bigger and tougher and stronger than all of that stuff. And the only question is, am I willing to do the work to get to be the man that that little boy would have become? That work is called the 12 steps. And through that process, we dig the poison out of my soul. And I get to be me. And I get to be me. And I had believed all my life that I wasn't good enough. This loving, laughing God who invented all those beautiful things was not having a bad day in the middle of a long losing streak when he created me or any of you. It didn't happen that way. You were wrong about that. And I was too. And that you've always been this beautiful person. You've always been. Talk when he took A to Russia. He said the alcoholic is like an electromagnet that's been dragged through the junkyard of life. We got this rusty, jagged, sharp, nasty stuff stuck all over us. And it's mostly defenses we don't need. Through the process of these 12 steps, we get hold of that power control. We turn that power down. And those things fall away. And this beautiful person you've always really been emerges. We're not here to change you into anything. You already are everything you needed to be. You were just wrong about all of that. He said, all that garbage in your past is not who you are. That's who you're not. Because if that's who you are, you're still out there doing it. It doesn't make you sick to think about it. We will teach you here how to quit doing who you're not, how to repair the damage for having done who you're not. And who you really are will emerge from the ashes like the phoenix. And that's not poetry, it's fact. That's what we do here, is we help you evolve into who you've always really been. This magnificent, gifted child of God, that there is a spark of the divine within all of us. We've had all this garbage down on top of it. Through the step work, we dig that garbage out and we fan that spark into a roaring blaze. That's what this thing is about. Happy, joyous, and free doesn't cover it. It is so much more than that. I want to thank you all again for giving me the opportunity. This has been such an experience for me to try to put this together, to try to get these things said as I wanted to. And I have just had the best time doing it. And this next session we're going to do is, you guys call it questions and answers. I'm going to call it questions and dumb looks. I don't want to overpromise here. I may have some answers, but I can promise you the dumb looks. But I have a request. I have a request, and it's a sincere one. Don't spend any time thanking me during this next time, all right? Don't take group time for that. I thank you. If you have questions or if you want to talk about some things you learned, that's great. But let's don't spend a group time on that. And we invited God to this meeting, by the way. I'd say he came. Thank you.